All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Academic Yak Pod. Oh, give me just 1 second. Ooh, okay, awesome. Welcome back. We are excited to be yakking about academia again here in the Academic Yak podcasting room. Um, we are joined today by the lovely Malloree. But before we get started, I want to give you guys our usual updates. The last episode with Chris, where we talked about cinema and communication, has been uploaded to our YouTube channel. If you haven't gotten a chance to check out our YouTube channel, it is just Academic Yak on YouTube. We also have a Twitter account that is yak_pod. On the Twitter account, that is where we post updates and things that are going on with the podcast as we schedule guests and reminders about upcoming episodes, and also where we post when the previous episodes have been uploaded live on YouTube. So please check out those two social media platforms for us. If you're ever interested in being on the podcast, or you know someone who might be interested, we also have a Gmail account, academicyakpod@gmail.com. So we would love to hear from you on any of our social media platforms. Without further ado, let's meet our guest for today. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Malloree Murdock, and I am in the same graduate program as Danny at the University of Arkansas. And I also work full-time in the registrar's office at the U of A, so I feel like a lot of my life is kind of revolved around the University of Arkansas. So yeah, that's basically me.
Yeah, awesome. So let's dive a little bit into your past and how you kind of got here today. So if you want to, just kind of share with us. I know you've kind of had an interesting time trying to figure out like where you want to go with your life and what you want to study and things that are going on with that. You're in a little bit of the non-trad position. You're just kind of like really that borderline there with being considered non-trad, just because you have had this interesting journey where you kind of try to figure yourself out, like most of us are doing in higher education. So kind of share with us maybe where you went to school and what you got your degree in, and how you worked your way now to being into this specific master's program.
So I went to Russellville High School and I graduated in 2011. And I really wanted to go to UCA or Hendrix, but I ended up choosing to go to Arkansas Tech, which was kind of funny because at first I was like, never going to Arkansas Tech.
Yeah.
I want to get out of town and travel and be in other places, but ultimately I just decided on tech, and it was nice and easy, and I knew tons of people, and I ended up rooming with my best friend Rachel from high school. And so yeah, I had a really good experience at tech. I got my undergrad in international studies with a political emphasis, and then one of my Spanish teachers convinced me to go ahead and get another major in Spanish, which I'm very glad that I did. Um, and then whenever it came time to graduate, I was just really, at first I was just so excited to like check off all my boxes of like having completed my degree.
Yeah.
But I was also like really nervous about the next step because I felt like I was still just so far from knowing what I really wanted to give myself to professionally. Um, and so somebody was telling me that I could go to graduate school and get paid to do it if I like found a graduate assistantship. So I started asking my professors and my like in the departments that I was used to, like Spanish and then the history and political science. And I ended up getting a grad assistantship working in the dean's office of the College of Arts and Sciences, which was really, really nice because first of all, my duties were limited, so I had tons of time to sit and read and write. And then the dean of that college at the time was Dr. Jeff Woods, who's like a really awesome professor that I really admire. So just working under him was cool. And yeah, I didn't have to do much, just kind of forced me to sit there and read, like take the time to read and write, because it's so easy to distract yourself at home.
Yeah.
So it gave me like a set space and time to do my work. And so I did 2 semesters of grad school in history, and the reason that I chose history was because I felt like I was lacking so much knowledge in history, because in high school um, I didn't enjoy it at all. And all the dates and like men who won these battles just sounded so boring to me. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of teachers that knew how to focus on the interesting parts of history. Um, so yeah, I just kind of didn't pay much attention. And then in my undergrad, with the classes I was taking, people would make all these historical references, and I'm not kidding you, I barely knew the difference between the Revolutionary War and the Civil War.
Yeah.
That's how limited my historical knowledge was. And so I did get okay grades in my grad school program there at Tech, and I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot, and it just really broadened my perspective of what humanity is and where it's been in the past and how little we know about the past.
Yeah.
It's yeah. So
Well, and especially growing up here in Arkansas, you know, we are ranked fairly low on our education system within the United States. And I think that, you know, growing up just about an hour and 10 minutes away from you, I definitely understand that frustration of like really not understanding the world that we come from and the history that is behind us. And I think that, you know, you going to grad school, first of all, the step that you took is like the step that everybody always says, right? Like, I don't really know what I want to do, so I'm just going to do this thing because it's a really great way to just continue doing what I'm already doing. But for you to step out of your comfort zone in that way and find an area that you're really inherently uncomfortable with, I think that that's actually kind of a unique perspective in this. That most people, they pick a program that furthers what they've already been studying. So for you to step out and to go into a master's program that kind of was unrelated to what you were already doing, that's really awesome. And I think that that's interesting. So how did you decide not to continue that program and then end up here at the U of A doing a master's in communication?
so I think part of the reason that I chose something like that was because I knew there was a good chance that I wouldn't finish the program, because I think when I started the program, I deep down knew that I needed to leave Russellville and I needed to move away. But I kind of wasn't, I was just so afraid. And it's so embarrassing now, but Fayetteville seemed really intimidating at the time. Like,
Yeah.
so many cool people I knew lived here in Fayetteville, and it seemed far away, and you know, it's only an hour and 40 minutes, but it just seemed like such a big step. And
Well, it is a big step.
yeah, and for me and like who I was at the time, I think it was. And so my brother, like my brother who lived in Bentonville at the time and was planning to move to Fayetteville, we talked about being roommates, and I think knowing that I would have him as a roommate and a place to live, that gave me enough courage to move up here.
Yeah.
And I talked to literally every professor that would listen to me about my personal issues and like wanting to move but not being sure, and wanting to quit the program but not being sure. And you know, different teachers would say different things, but it was good to just like hear everyone's opinions. And there are some really awesome people at Arkansas Tech, by the way. But yeah, so I basically got kind of like not mentally well for a while there. Like right before I moved, I was like, I knew what I needed to do and I wasn't doing it, and it was making me mentally sick.
Yeah.
And so the sicker I got, the more I was like, I have to do this. And then I just like let go of like everything and just did it, and I'm so happy I did. And then like my mental wellness increased a lot.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, that's a really, I feel like that's the part of making decisions about where you want to end up, that people don't really talk about. And I think that, you know, you hit on a couple of things that I really resonated with, in that, like, Fayetteville is an intimidating place to live when you've grown up in a small town. And I grew up in a town that when I would go to Russellville for the summers to go to band camp, like, Russellville was intimidating for me. And so, you know, I ended up going to UCA, and even that was really overwhelming at first. So for me to be here in Fayetteville now, like, I had to do that step a second time, and it was really intimidating again. So, you know, feel validated in the fact that, like, anytime you're having to move and cut ties with where you're comfortable and where you have grown up, that's always a difficult decision. It doesn't matter if you're 16, 18, or 50. Anytime you have to make that decision, it's really, really difficult. But for you to have the self-recognition of, like, I'm going into this program, I know that this is, like, something to help me feel better, but also I know that the stakes are low because this is where I want to be long term. And then to actually make that decision and to have the support of your brother in that process is really amazing. So you moved to Fayetteville, and now you're here. And you are, I'm assuming, working a little bit at that time. How is it that you decided to work your way into this master's program?
So before I moved to Fayetteville, and I almost kind of forgot about this, but I had this idea that I was gonna connect with one of my best friend's moms who worked at, or still works at UAMS.
Mm-hmm.
And we had like briefly talked about how I could somehow find a job working with the Marshallese population. And so that's what I had in my mind when I moved up here. And like I said, I just wasn't doing super well. So when I first moved up, I kind of wasn't ready to like present myself to her and like dive into a job like that. So I ended up being a waitress at Wasabi. That was my first job when I moved up here. And honestly, it was really good. Like, I do not regret it because I met amazing people there that I still am friends with and like really enjoy and care about. And so I feel like Wasabi was kind of a home for me and like still kind of is a little bit. But yeah, I basically worked at Wasabi, and then I had other jobs along the way. But I usually kept working at Wasabi even part-time, even when I had other full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Like, my friend Morgan got me a job at this neuroscience clinic. So I did that for like almost a year. And that was like good office experience. And then I worked at a Bar 3, it's like yoga and Pilates gym. I worked there for about a year because I just kind of like needed to like refresh and like figure out what it was I wanted to do. And so I was like working at the gym, working at Wasabi at the same time.
Yeah.
Just kind of taking a breath. And then I thought about doing the communication disorders program at U of A, but I would have had to start from
undergrad.
Square one, undergrad, and just fully embrace it. And it's a competitive program. It just didn't seem like doable financially. And then like around the same time that I was inquiring in that program, I like just haphazardly filled out an application on the U of A jobs website for the registrar assistant position.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even like think about it that much. And then I got a call from U of A and I thought it was about the like advising appointment that I had made for an undergrad program, but it was a job interview. My now supervisor Mike was calling me to ask if I wanted the interview, and I was like, yeah, and that worked out. And so now, honestly, I'm really happy at the U of A. Like, you know, every job has its good parts and bad parts, but I feel like the good definitely outweigh the bad.
Mm-hmm.
And the opportunity to go to school and work is pretty much all I want. So, can't really beat that.
So at your time at Bar 3, from, you know, conversations we've had in the past, that is where also Dr. Aloya works.
Oh, yeah.
And Dr. Aloya is an incredible instructor in the Department of Communication here. She is absolutely lovely. And so from my understanding, you guys had talked a little bit about kind of what you were wanting to do, and you had started this job at the U of A, so you were kind of becoming refamiliarized with the campus and kind of regrowing in your love for being here at the U of A. And so, you know, through those conversations, that's kind of how you had reached, you know, engaging with the Department of Communication. So tell me a little bit about like how you decided to apply to be in this program, and then where you are in this program right now, like how you're doing with the program and kind of what it is that you're studying.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I almost forgot. But yeah, I'm so glad that I, you know, got that job at Bar 3, even though it was just kind of like a part-time job. It was just a good place to meet amazing ladies that are smart and cool in different ways. And Lindsay was one of them, and she talked about the communication department, and then also Dr. Neville Shepherd, Dr. Meredith Neville Shepherd, worked out there, and so like I would see her around there and talk to her a little bit about it too. And then there were other ladies there that were professors in other departments, and I don't know, I just felt like it was a really cool place to be. But yeah, Dr. Lindsay Aloya definitely inspired me because like she just gave me a bunch of inside info about the department. It was like, talk to Dr. Ryan Neville Shepherd. Since you're interested in politics. And I was like, perfect. And so I just felt like really grateful for that information because, I mean, all that information is available online, but it can be intimidating to just look it all up and you kind of feel like, oh, well, I don't belong, you know, but like when you know somebody that's like, oh, yeah, you would fit in, it's like gives you that sense of confidence that you can be a part of it. And so I actually asked Dr. Aloya to write one of my letters of recommendation for the program, which she did, and I'm very thankful. I'm sure that was like pretty key.
Yeah.
It's like everything else on my application was bad, but that, no, I'm just kidding.
I doubt
I'm kidding, but I'm just saying that would almost be enough. But yeah, so she definitely was an influence in the program that I picked. Like I knew I wanted to go back to school, and I knew that with what I did for undergrad, it would be kind of hard to find something that fit and made sense, and I still don't know what my future is. But communication was just broad enough that I was like, I love it. It works.
Yeah, communication is really awesome because it is really flexible. You have a lot of opportunities within our department to kind of focus on the ways that you want to. And so I know that you are interested in political communication. You do a lot of talking about the political environment. Your Twitter is very active about the political environment in such wonderful ways. I always enjoy when I'm just casually scrolling, seeing the things that you have to say on there. It makes me laugh. But also, like, you just have a passion for people and the things that impact them on their daily lives in a way that, you know, a lot of people who are interested in politics are talking about massive policy and they're talking about federal policy and things like that, which are really important because they do affect us. But you do a really great job of like, well, yeah, those things are important. We need to talk about them, but this is tangibly how this is going to affect you in your everyday life. And you do a really great job of connecting the things that are going on within legislation. Sorry. Shed hair all the time and it's on my legs.
I'm just enjoying the compliments.
Yeah, well, but you do a really good job of saying like, here is this thing that everyone's talking about and people are complaining about it, but let's break it down in a way that like really you can understand how this is actually impacting you as Danny Scholes in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And the ways that you do that really help people understand things. And I think that, you know, we don't see that a whole lot with people who are studying politics, but I think that that's where the communication aspect is coming in, is you're looking at exactly how things are being discussed and how things are being broken down and communicated to the people around them, and not just what the actual policy says in its legal ramifications. You really do a great job of like breaking it down and saying, okay, this is the message around the actual text that's being contributed to. So talk a little bit about your experience with political communication and what it is that you're studying in the comm department.
Well, thank you, because that just like stroked my ego very much in the best way. But I find myself politically passionate about a lot of different topics, and I feel like a couple years ago, the only topics that I felt comfortable being loud about were environmental topics, because no one can really get mad at you for wanting to take care of nature and the environment. No one can really get upset about that. And if they do, you know, that can just be written off. But then last summer, during what I call Black Lives Matter summer, I just decided that I was gonna be loud about topics that were like really important, even if they were controversial. And I tried to like, you know, just to help my family members see like why these things are important. Like why, because like you get your family members who are like, oh, I can't believe all this damage to public property. Oh, I'm so upset about the graffiti. And it's like, you're upset about the graffiti when somebody got stepped on to death? Like,
yeah.
And so, yeah, I got really like in a dark place, almost trying to battle my relatives whom I love on Facebook last year. And I had like talks with my mom about like setting boundaries with that very thing, because it can like keep you up at night.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, I don't care if it keeps me up at night, because I'm like, this is fucking important. Bleep, bleep.
Oh no, people cuss on here all the time.
Okay. So anyway, I just felt myself kind of like pull my shell away a little bit and just come out of my people pleasing self into like a little bit braver self that stands up for what I believe in, even if people that I deeply care about and that I've always looked up to disagree with me passionately. I've just decided that, like, if I feel informed enough about something and I've heard enough people say we are struggling, we need help with this, it's worth it to, like, make a relative or a loved one of any kind feel uncomfortable for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because if you really love, like, the people that I love the most, that's who I feel it's fine to be uncomfortable with them. I'm comfortable having uncomfortable moments if I care about you enough to, like, work through it, you know?
Yeah, and I think that that's something, I think, nationally, people really have struggled over the last year, not just with the global pandemic and all of the things that people are refusing to understand about the, being in a global pandemic and taking care of themselves and the people around them, but also with the Black Lives Matters movement, especially here in Arkansas. We have we're in the Deep South, we're in the Bible Belt, but we also have the head of the KKK here. And I think that growing up in Arkansas, we have a completely different relationship with a lot of family members, because Arkansas is a pretty small state, and so you're going to interact with people on a regular basis who have deep-rooted racist ideologies that, even when people who don't think they're being racist are reinforcing the stigma. And it is really hard to have conversations with people, strangers already, but then also the people that you love, and saying, like, hey, I know that you personally don't have anything against a person of color, but the things that you're saying are reinforcing that racism, and that can be really tough. But I agree with you, and I think that you hit on a couple of things that are really important, namely that, like, the people you love are the people you are the most comfortable being uncomfortable with. And I think that the only way that change can really happen is in having those uncomfortable conversations. And I think if everyone who was able to have that uncomfortable conversation would have it, and just do it, as uncomfortable as it may be, and then realize that, like, fundamentally that doesn't always change everything about your relationship with that person, I think we could see some real tangible growth in the population, especially here in the South. I've had a lot of those really uncomfortable conversations lately, and unfortunately I have lost connection with some family members because they just refuse to understand or believe that some of the things that they say and do really are meaningful and hateful, and they really do have an impact on the people in my life, or in the lives of strangers around them who hear the things that they say. And so for you to say, like, how can I get a degree that allows me to be even louder about these things and understand them in a new way, I think that's so important. And I think that it's really amazing that you can take the journey that you have taken, from an undergrad who was kind of afraid to leave home to now being someone who's standing up for people who don't get the chance to do that. And there's a lot of people who will say things like, oh, well, we don't really have a place in that conversation because, we're white and we shouldn't be talking about those things. But I think that what's important is when people of color can't talk about those things, that we do that work on the sidelines, and then when we can, lift up the POC's voices and giving them the platform and the space that we can to do the work. And I think that you're doing that. You're providing that space as best as you can, and when that space is not made available, you kind of use your voice to take control of that situation, which I think is really important work. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I wanted to say one thing about the whole confronting your relatives situation. And my mom said one time about this situation, like, you're never gonna convince anyone of anything if they don't feel like you care about them.
Yeah.
And so, like, some of the conversations I had, like, ended really badly, but some of them, like, if you can present it like that, it's coming from a place of love, like, hey cousin, I love you, and I know that you are not meaning this negatively, but here's how it negatively impacts me and people I know, and it hurts us.
Yeah.
They can start to go, like, oh, well, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody. That's not what my intention was. And some people, some people are willing to like take a step back, but it can also be hard. And I've even been in the position where like I was wrong about something, somebody I loved pointed it out, and I felt defensive about that, and I didn't want to come down from my viewpoint. So, we're all human and we all have our preconceived ideas that we feel strongly about. And so, yeah, I think if we try to come from a place of love more than like an aggressive place,
Yeah.
it can be more productive.
Yeah, and I think too, this is a good time to remind people that, when you're having those difficult conversations and you are wanting to come from a place of like, like shaking the shoulders, like, can you please just understand what it is that I'm talking about? Because that happens.
Yes.
Like, if we can, if you get to that moment and you do that thing and then later you're like, dang, like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, yeah, you shouldn't have, but, we're human and it's okay if you mess up sometimes. Just try to like, take a deep breath and remove yourself from that situation and then come back to it later. I think that that's so incredibly important. But like, don't take those moments when you do fail to communicate effectively and just give up. I think that that's what happens a lot of the time is we give up and we have the privilege of like just continuing to remain complacent because we messed up one or two times. But that's where change stops happening. So when you do mess up, just be okay with that and move forward from it and know that that's just going to happen no matter what it is you're doing in life. So you got to keep moving forward from that situation.
Yes, and I think when people acknowledge that they messed up and they say, I'm so sorry, I
Yeah.
think that's really respectable and impressive. So,
Yeah, and that's on both sides, right? If you're someone who says something and someone points out that is not okay in that social situation, just apologize and try your best to make sure you learn from that situation. And if you're the one that points it out, but then they get defensive and then you start getting defensive, both of you need to take a step back and really kind of resituate yourself.
yeah.
But so moving forward, you're working full time, so you're a part time student. So it's gonna take a little bit more than the 2 year period typical for a master's degree, which is awesome. That being said, when you do get to your graduation and you are ready to kind of take the next step, what is it that you're hoping that you can do with your degree in communication?
So,
And that's a tough question.
yeah, it is. But right now, I can kind of picture myself staying within the U of A system for a long time because there's so much going on within
Yeah.
the University of Arkansas, and I feel like I get to see a lot of some of the behind the scenes because I'm in the registrar's office, and I get
Yeah.
to see how some of it works. And there's things that I have no idea how they work, like sororities or football teams. Like I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just know that there's a lot that needs to be done within a university, and so I can kind of picture myself just slowly moving around and hopefully moving up within the U of A. And like if I have a master's in communication, I just feel like that will open a lot of opportunities
Yeah.
at the U of A.
Yeah, just hearing that, I mean, that's exactly where I am too. I worked for 2 years at UCA as an admissions counselor, just a fancy term for a recruiter, and I did that for 2 years between my undergrad and graduate school. Kind of similar to you, just kind of found a job and then fell in love with it, and I really enjoyed working in higher education in that background capacity. And so, but one thing I did learn, and I'll share with you specifically, is that like not having a master's degree really closed a lot of doors for me. A lot of people said, it doesn't really matter too much what your master's degree in. It's just having that master's will open a lot of doors for you to do different types of work. And so I want to encourage you in that, like, I hope that you find some excitement in finishing this degree and seeing what doors will open up from it, just because that minimum qualification changes from bachelor's to master's really quickly in the higher education world. And so to get out of those entry level positions, however incredible they are and how necessary they are, this is definitely the best step in moving forward. As someone who just like literally lives on the higher ed jobs hiring website all the time, I'm always looking at what's available, and everything is always requiring a master's. So, but you being politically advantageous in your master's program, I think will also help open a lot of doors for you. But I'll be interested to see kind of where you end up in the next few years, and I hope that you're excited about the rest of your journey here in the Masters of Comm program. I know I'm excited having you here. I like talking to you and just bouncing ideas.
Actually, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful you're here.
Yeah, we're very different. We have very different life perspectives and very different ways of going through this program. And I think, again, it's something I say every time I have a comm student on here is, we all do this very, very differently. Like, even though you and Gabby kind of overlap a lot more than anybody else that we've interviewed so far in how you approach communication, you still just do it so differently. And I think that that's a really incredible thing about the field of communication that we have going for us is you can talk to 10 comm scholars in the same room and none of them are doing the same things, which is awesome. So
I think my unique style is I have no idea what I'm doing.
no, that part is not unique to you. None of us know what we're doing. We're just hoping for the best. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed chatting with you. As always, this has been recorded, so if you missed any portion of this podcast, it will be uploaded to Academic Yak on YouTube. Check us out there to see previous episodes as well. And thanks for joining us today. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Thank you. Bye.